All right, mic test, chicka chicka, mic test. And you can have the volume up here if you want. Okay. Hey, welcome back, ladies and gentlemen. I am so glad to have you all here for another episode of Just One Question. I'm your host, Lion Flood. Thank you, each and every one of you, for being here. Do me a small favor. When you get an opportunity, go right down there and hit that like, subscribe button so you can ensure that you get to catch all of the new episodes when they come out and everybody else gets to see some of what's happening. First and foremost, let me start by saying, as I always do, this presentation is not nearly about cop bashing or against law enforcement. I am against the system that gives the opportunity for them to ruin other people's lives without any repercussions even coming back to them. Small example in today's show. You're going to see an officer, and I'll give you a small context of what's happening, but I'll let you watch the video and make your own determination. And I love hearing your comments down below. So an officer is traveling, and I'm just going to say northbound. A vehicle is coming southbound. An officer then goes and proceeds. The vehicle that is behind the officer then honks the horn. The officer goes and makes a complete 360 to come after the vehicle that honked the horn. Why? Because he's mad. He's now about to use his power, his badge, to try to go after someone else instead of going after the vehicle that was allegedly breaking a traffic infraction, right? But if you notice in the very first beginning, when the officer calls in to dispatch, notice the very first lie that he states of why he's calling in the dispatch. Without any further ado, let's hop right into this. Hope y'all enjoy.
Welcome to Audit the Audit, where we sort out the who and what and the right and wrong of police interactions. This episode covers disorderly conduct, self-incrimination, and reckless driving, and is brought to us by Lackluster's channel. Be sure to check out the description below and give them the credit that they deserve. On May 10th, 2019, disabled veteran Charles Donner and his wife Brittany were driving behind Arkansas State Police Trooper Ryan Wingo in Hot Springs, Arkansas, when Trooper Wingo made a sudden U-turn to attempt to pursue a vehicle traveling the opposite direction that was allegedly speeding. Mr. Donner honked his horn at Trooper Wingo, and Trooper Wingo responded by making a full 360-degree turn, passing another vehicle and pulling behind Mr. Donner with his lights flashing. When Mr. Donner pulled to the right side of the road and stopped his vehicle, Trooper Wingo crashed into him with his cruiser.
Pull into the parking lot. Pull into the parking lot. 60 Hot Springs. Go and send one of the normal units over here to the shoe factory. I had a car slam on the brakes in front of me.
So I'm going to stop it really quick. If you notice, the very first thing he says to the dispatch when he calls in for backup is that he had a vehicle stopped directly in front of him. What does that do? That relates to dispatch, hey, it's the vehicle's fault of whatever happened, of why he needs other officers to come. Keep listening, keep watching, and observe this next thing.
License, registration, insurance, sir.
Yeah, sure. Why are you pulling me over?
Because you're following me too closely and nearly ran into me.
No, I did not. You slammed on your brakes. You had no brake. You had no turn signal or nothing.
I had to turn around on the car without speeding. I'm doing my job out here, sir. Give me your license.
You hit me. Don't worry. Don't worry. I'll see you in court, dude. Take it out and look at my car.
Hey, take a seat in the car for right now. We're on traffic stop right now. Okay?
You hit my car.
We're on traffic stop right now.
Out here.
I want to see the damage done to my vehicle.
Give me a minute. We're on a traffic stop right now. Once I get done with my traffic stop, for following too closely.
I was not following too close. Clearly you were. You hit me.
You stopped in the middle of a roadway, sir.
No, you
I didn't
slammed
stop.
on your brakes.
I got over and I was in the lane.
You
trying
stopped
to
in the
speed
lane.
back up. No, I was
you
trying to
can't
speed back up.
Okay,
and you
sir.
slammed on your gas.
Okay.
And you hit us.
Okay.
So.
Okay. Well, I told you why I stopped you, because you were following me too closely.
But I wasn't. But
okay.
We'll see in court.
Okay. Do you have an ID on you, ma'am?
I sure do.
You don't need her ID.
Yes, I do, actually, for the accident report
That's
that you so want, sir.
Yes.
I do want it.
Okay.
You f***ing hit me.
There's no damage between our vehicles, though.
I don't give a f***, bro. You f***ing hit me.
Yeah.
Trooper Wingo rips open Mr. Donner's door, orders him to exit the vehicle, and places him under arrest for disorderly conduct. Arkansas's disorderly conduct law, which is found in Section 5-71-207 of the Arkansas Code, states that, quote, a person commits the offense of disorderly conduct if, with the purpose to cause public inconvenience, annoyance, or alarm, or recklessly creating a risk of public inconvenience, annoyance, or alarm, he or she engages in fighting or in violent, threatening, or tumultuous behavior, makes unreasonable or excessive noise, in a public place uses abusive or obscene language, or makes an obscene gesture in a manner likely to provoke a violent or disorderly response. Not only was Mr. Donner's conduct not likely to cause a public disturbance, as he was only speaking to Trooper Wingo, but, as we've discussed before on ATA, profanity is protected speech under the First Amendment, and citizens cannot be arrested for simply using curse words. For instance, in the 2000 case of Nichols versus Chacon, the West District of Arkansas determined that a police officer violated the First and Fourth Amendments when he arrested an individual under this same disorderly conduct statute for giving him the middle finger. The court concluded that, although the gesture was inarticulate and crude, quote, it represented an expression of disapproval toward a police officer with whom he had just had a run-in. As such, it fell squarely within the protective umbrella of the First Amendment, and any action to punish or deter such speech, such as stopping or hassling the speaker, is categorically prohibited by the Constitution. In reaching this decision, the court reviewed a long line of Supreme Court decisions on the issue, including the 1987 case of Houston versus Hill. In this case, the court held that, quote, the First Amendment protects a significant amount of verbal criticism and challenge directed at police officers. Speech is often provocative and challenging, but it is nevertheless protected against censorship or punishment, unless shown likely to produce a clear and present danger of a serious substantive evil that rises far above public inconvenience, annoyance, or unrest. The court also noted that, quote, the freedom of individuals verbally to oppose or challenge police action without thereby risking arrest is one of the principal characteristics by which we distinguish a free nation from a police state. Given the well-established legal precedent protecting the right to use profanity and express disapproval of police officers, a court would almost certainly conclude that Trooper Wingo's actions violated Mr. Donner's constitutional rights.
You're under arrest for disorderly conduct, sir.
Ooh.
Come on. Take a seat until you can calm down.
Okay.
Why are you doing this?
Ma'am, there was no need for cussing me out. Until he can calm down and act like an adult, he's going to sit in the back of the car.
So here I go jumping in really quick again with this. All right, the trooper's comments, think about this. Ma'am, there's no need for him to curse me out. Well, trooper, there was no need for you to take your anger out and place him under arrest for disorderly conduct, which was bogus. Jump ahead, the district attorney dropped those charges, everything, right? But even so beyond that, you're placing him under arrest, placing trauma onto his spouse. What if his kid was in the back? Just because you're angry that someone is cursing you out. And for those who say, well, you shouldn't be cursing out an officer, please take that garbage somewhere else, because that's their job, to take that. They need to take the stress, learn how to deal with it. People are going to curse them out. So then what do you say? What if someone says, what if the officer got mad because the guy said, you know what, I don't like your shirt? Well, then what are you going to say then? Well, you shouldn't be saying you don't like his shirt to the officer. This is about the officer using their power and abusing it just because they're frustrated or they're mad. Let's continue so you'll see some more of what happens next.
Explain to you, my husband has severe PTSD. Severe. He's a 100% disabled veteran, and he is fucking, and that's why I'm here.
You gonna talk to me? You gonna let me talk, or you just want to interrupt me the entire time, ma'am?
I'm sorry.
Okay. until he can calm down and act like a human being and stop cussing me out for no reason. So I'm trying to explain to him what happened. But he doesn't want to let me talk, okay? So do you want to let me talk or not?
Yes, I'm sorry.
Okay. Now, you gonna calm down or you gonna continue cussing me out?
I just want your badge number and your name.
I'm asking you a simple question. So you're gonna calm
Sure,
down?
I just want your badge number and your name. That's all I want.
Okay, well, I'm trying to ask you
And
a
I
simple
said,
question.
sure, officer.
Okay, well, you're going to continue cussing me out or not? Because that was that. And you're going to say sure, then I'm not going to have you sit out here and cuss
Plead
at
the
me for no
fifth.
reason. There's no fifth to, you're not incriminating yourself, sir.
Here, Trooper Wingo tells Mr. Donner that he doesn't need to invoke his right to silence because he's not being asked incriminating questions. However, the Fifth Amendment applies to a much broader range of interrogation than blatantly incriminating questions, and individuals should exercise their right to remain silent in a variety of situations. In the 1951 case of Hoffman versus United States, the Supreme Court held that the right against self-incrimination, quote, not only extends to answers that would in themselves support a conviction, but likewise embraces those which would furnish a link in the chain of evidence needed to prosecute the claimant. The court also determined that citizens cannot be compelled to answer questions when they have reasonable cause to fear consequences from answering the question, or when it is, quote, evident from the implications of the question, in the setting in which it is asked, that a responsive answer to the question or an explanation of why it cannot be answered might be dangerous because injurious disclosure could result. Similarly, in the 2001 case of Ohio versus Reiner, the Supreme Court determined that both innocent and guilty individuals have the right to remain silent during police interrogation because, quote, truthful responses of an innocent witness, as well as those of a wrongdoer, may provide the government with incriminating evidence from the speaker's own mouth, and that it is reasonable for an individual to fear that answering police questions might incriminate them. In this situation, answering even a seemingly innocuous question, such as, are you going to calm down now, could have caused Mr. Donner to unintentionally implicate himself. For instance, if Mr. Donner had agreed to calm down and stop cussing out Trooper Wingo, it could have insinuated that his conduct was unreasonable before he was handcuffed, and that he believed that his detention was justified. This is one of the many reasons that citizens should invoke their right to remain silent when police officers attempt to question them, as when an individual answers a question inexactly or incorrectly, it can be used to incriminate them, even when they are innocent.
I'm just trying to ask you
And
a
I already
simple
said
question.
sure. I just
You're
want your
gonna cuss
badge
me out
number.
the
I
first
just
time?
want your badge number and your name.
Okay,
That's all I want.
okay.
This is gonna end horribly.
I just want him, I'm trying to get him to calm down, but he doesn't want to, he wants to continue to yell at me for no reason, okay?
Chevy West, down the bank, go ahead.
I said he has severe PTSD.
I don't know if he has malicious intent. He's over here yelling and cussing me. Now I'm just trying to get his information, and he wants to start yelling, stop in the middle of the road for no reason.
I understand, but he was freaking out because you hit our car. That's why he was upset, was because you hit us.
Driver in the backseat, he started cussing me out, and I'm trying to have him calm down the backseat.
Okay, but everything's good to go.
Yeah. He just wants to yell and cuss me for no reason, so I got him out and put him in the backseat of the car.
So you're good?
Yeah.
Okay.
I was coming this way. I saw him riding my butt. I didn't really care. Car top hill going 60. I'm on overtime. Just turned around.
Right.
When I went to turn around, he slammed.
Were you hot?
Yeah. I had to turn around. I don't slam on brakes or anything. I hit my brakes, turn around. I knew he was riding my butt. So just turned around. Yeah. Turned around, and when I turned around, he starts laying on his horn. So I was like, okay. So you want to lay on your horn, I'll just pull you over forward to closer. So when I turned back around to come behind him, he moves straight over from the inside lane to the outside lane, moves straight over and just slams on the brakes. And I'm just trying to get behind him, and he slams on his brakes. And I didn't even have my lights on at that point, but he just stops in the middle of the road.
Trooper Wingo recounts his version of events to a fellow trooper who responded to the scene, which is wildly different from what the dash and cab cams show actually occurred. First, Trooper Wingo claims that Mr. Donner was following him too closely, but the cab footage shows that Mr. Donner left plenty of distance between the two vehicles while Trooper Wingo was driving in front of him. Trooper Wingo also alleges that he had not activated his emergency lights when Mr. Donner stopped his vehicle, but the cab cam also shows that he did in fact turn on his emergency lights before the collision occurred. Finally, Trooper Trooper Wingo insists that Mr. Donner stopped in the middle of the road when Mr. Donner had clearly pulled into the right lane to yield to the police vehicle. What the video footage also shows is that Trooper Wingo started to make a U-turn without first getting into the middle turning lane. Then, when Mr. Donner honked his horn at him, Trooper Wingo turned back around to pull over Mr. Donner and ultimately slammed into Mr. Donner's vehicle when he stopped. Although Arkansas law does allow police vehicles to disregard traffic laws in some circumstances, they are generally required to follow the same rules of the road as everyone else. For example, Section 27-51-202 of the Arkansas Code establishes that certain speed limit laws, quote, do not apply to authorized emergency vehicles responding to emergency calls when the driver of the emergency vehicle is operating the vehicle's emergency lights and is also operating an audible signal by bell, siren, or exhaust whistle if other vehicles are present. However, the statute also explicitly states that, quote, this section does not relieve the driver of an authorized emergency vehicle from the duty to drive with due regard for the safety of all persons using the street, nor shall it protect the driver of any emergency vehicle from the consequence of a reckless disregard of the safety of others. Given this evidence, a court would probably determine that Trooper Wingo's erratic driving was not only likely responsible for the accident, but it was also illegal.
Look, Dave, you see these cars, you see the lights, you see the marking. That's our U-turns are legal when we're going out to the highway. It doesn't make any difference. Okay. And what you did, slamming on your brakes. I didn't slam on my brakes. That's his word. That's not mine and my wife's word. That's fine. I didn't slam on my brakes, so. Wait, it's all being pre-recorded.
And you can tell right here, one of the main reasons why I say who's investigating, the investigators, right? Whoever this is that's coming in right now, and it's a supervisor, I know, but we'll go to that a little bit later. He automatically takes his trooper's word. Understandably, they work for him, he's supposed to. But now he's talking to this gentleman who's arrested as if, here's the cops explaining. Well, if you didn't slam on your brakes, he said, I didn't. That's his word, not my or my wife's word, or even the video's word. The officer says, I didn't have my lights on at that time, so he had no reason to pull over and stop. He did have his lights over. And as we always see, cops pull their lights on, we're supposed to pull over and stop and, and get off to the side. Well, what would have happened if he kept going? Then the officer would have said he tried to elude me, get him in further trouble. Watch what happens next as he continues to talk, and you will see exactly what I mean with these lies bring to someone's life and bring such disruption into their life. Check this out.
1 minute.
It don't matter. It don't have to stand.
Yeah.
Are you one of these type people that you're going to provoke the police? No, I'm not trying to. It sounds like it. No.
Trooper Wingo eventually released Mr. Donner without charging him with disorderly conduct and issued him a citation for following too closely and parking on a highway. Because of the traumatic experience they had with Trooper Wingo, the Donners decided not to fight these charges and paid the $330 fine. The couple recently decided to retain an attorney to pursue a civil rights lawsuit against Trooper Wingo, and Ms. Donner has created a GoFundMe campaign to help cover the costs of attorney fees. You can find a link in the description below. Overall, Trooper Wingo gets an F for causing a crash by recklessly operating his patrol vehicle, intentionally misrepresenting the facts of the encounter to justify his actions, and for violating Mr. Donner's First and Fourth Amendment rights by arresting him for his speech. Not only did Trooper Wingo exercise poor discretion by choosing to pull over someone who honked at him rather than an individual who was potentially committing an actual violation, but he also needlessly violated several traffic laws and caused a low-speed crash in an effort to do so. It could certainly be argued that the trooper's actions put more citizens in danger than Mr. Donner would have if he actually had been following the trooper too closely, and it would be difficult for anyone, much less a court, to find Trooper Wingo's conduct anything but objectively unreasonable. Trooper Wingo failed to take responsibility for his actions, arrested a citizen for criticizing his conduct, and was unable to control the situation in a peaceful and professional manner. And this is yet another encounter where an officer attempted to criminalize behavior that their ego could not tolerate, rather than making a legitimate effort to de-escalate the situation. situation. It seems clear that Mr. Donner has a civil case on his hands, and it'll be interesting to see whether he is able to raise the funds to find representation. Mr. Donner gets an A for remaining relatively calm and collected throughout the encounter, verbally invoking his right to remain silent, and for maintaining a reasonable balance between challenging the conduct of the troopers and complying with their commands. As discussed earlier, profanities are generally protected under the First Amendment, especially when directed at police officers, and nothing that Mr. Donner said constituted a violation of any legitimate statute. Considering that he was being accused of following Trooper Wingo too closely immediately after being rear-ended by the trooper, Mr. Donner was reacting to the situation in a relatively reasonable manner. Mr. Donner also made a point to verbally invoke his right to remain silent, and refused to waive that right despite Trooper Wingo's insistence that remaining silent was not necessary. I commend Mr. Donner for effectively exercising his right to silence and for having the courage to follow up this encounter with legal action. A link to Mr. Donner's GoFundMe will be in the description below if you are interested in helping him retain an attorney. And
So now I want to get back to this and go ahead and put this baby to sleep here. First of all, thank you to Audit the Audit. I love the way he presents some of the information, going into the legal facts of it as well, to show how this situation escalated when it was just something simply that didn't even need to go there, right? So thank you all for taking the time to watch. Make sure you send this out. Make sure you like, subscribe, let everyone know about this so that we can get the word out and we can talk about this and figure some different ways to handle these situations in the future. Once again, thank you all for watching. I appreciate it. Hustle. Remember, just one question. I'm your host, Lion Flood. Thank you again. Enjoy, and you all have a great day.